the god of chaos, the one who rose from death, the 11th apostle, Ozma of Chaos. Before the Delos Empire existed, the prime power of Arad was the Palos Empire. It was born 800 years ago after annexing numerous smaller nations and tribes of the continent. It had the greatest military power of all of Arad, enough to unite the entire continent if it wished to. However, not 50 years after its birth, the empire faced a great threat. During this period, Bakar the Dragon King was the master of the Empyrean, and he sent his 3 great dragons down to the lower lands to wreak havoc. Ice Dragon Skasa landed on the northern lands where it would torment the Bantus. Death Dragon Spirazzi descended onto the Fennis Kingdom of the Dark Elves. And the Palos Empire faced Berserk Dragon Hismar. For years, Hismar raised the lands of the empire and weakened it greatly. Any and all efforts were ultimately pointless, unable to inflict any permanent damage to the dragon and drive it away. The scourge of the dragon lasted for the next 52 years, until 2 heroes appeared, Kazan and Ozma. Kazan was the great general of the empire, a mighty berserker who was the greatest warrior in all of Arad. Ozma was his best friend, a man of just ideals and unparalleled knowledge in magic. Kazan left his men to keep the other dragons occupied, and the 2 heroes faced the great dragon on their own. And they were victorious. The dragon was dead, and the 2 men became living legends of epic tales. All of the empire sang their praises, and every child dreamt of becoming heroes like them. The emperor praised the heroes as well, but his heart began to brew fear. If the people turned to them, his throne would be threatened. It was also then that a mysterious fortune-teller appeared before him and prophesied. The 2 wolves' praise shall resound higher than the king's, and the old lion shall one day fall by their hands. The emperor now had the false faith that he was right, and accused Kazan of treason. Ozma was ordered to capture him. But the 2 heroes were still friends like none other, and there were many who still stood with Kazan and cried his innocence. So instead of fighting, the 2 decided to return to the emperor together and talk to him for a voice of reason. Yet the emperor was all but deaf. Even when the entire empire was singing their praises, he ordered the heroes to be captured and be thrown into the dungeons. The heroes had become traitors. The heroes were cruelly punished for the sins they did not commit. Kazan had the tendons of his arms removed, rendering him crippled. Ozma's eyes were gouged out, turning him blind. Kazan's entire family was executed, and Ozma's fiancée Liz was taken from him to be the emperor's concubine. Liz wished to save Ozma's life by whatever means. She begged the emperor to not execute them and exile them instead, in exchange that she would be at his side willingly. He reluctantly agreed, and Liz had one last chance to speak to her lover before they were never to be together ever again. The lovers shared their last farewells and smiles, only to shed their tears after their goodbyes so that they would not have to see each other's sorrows. But the emperor did not keep even this last promise. Kazan was exiled far past the northern Stru Mountains, where only cold and death could be found. Ozma was abandoned in the southern sea with no help for him. But before Ozma was taken away from his cell, he cried out to his friend Kazan. "Become the god of extinction that will destroy everything. I will become the god of chaos to end the world. Remember this, my friend. This isn't over. You must survive, and I will find you." After they were disposed of, all who remained that still sided with the heroes were either executed or ended their own lives out of shame that they were powerless to help them. History remembered the heroes as traitors. The El Larinons, Liz's family, were bestowed unparalleled attention by the emperor and became the wealthiest of the nobilities. An era of peace and prosperity had begun. But this was merely a flash of light before the darkest night. One night, when Ozma was still locked up in his cell, a being calling itself the Reaper approached him. It offered him the power of a demon great enough to destroy the world in exchange for his soul. Ozma refused, as he still had righteousness in his heart at this point. The Reaper returned to the shadows, whispering that it was Ozma himself that called upon it. But after his last meeting with Liz, the man's heart began to break. His love, his friend, his family, all had to taste the most bitter torment for crimes he did not commit. And both he and Kazan were to be remembered as traitors. If it weren't for the avaricious humans, he would be happy with Liz, and his best friend wouldn't need to suffer. He now understood. Humans were the plague of this world, and they had to be cleansed. The Reaper returned and offered him power once again. But Ozma wanted more. He didn't want the power of a mere demon. He wished to be a god. Everything the Reaper asked in exchange, he had already lost. He accepted the offer, and he became the God of Chaos. Some time later, Ozma found Kazan's dead body and resurrected him as the God of Extinction. Ozma asked him to join his path to cleanse the world from the despicable humans, but he refused and walked away on his own. But this was not because Kazan still had love for humanity. It was from this moment that the Kazan syndrome began circulating throughout the world, and he tormented the humans in his own way. Ozma respected his friend's choice. The world knew peace for a moment, but it wouldn't be long before the darkest moments of Arad would begin. It all started with the first imposters. Imposters are, as their name suggests, infectious creatures that pretend to be a person they aren't. Born from Ozma's blood curse, those who are affected by it are consumed from within. But from the outside they remain unchanged and act as they always have. There are no ways to discern them from those who aren't affected, until one day they would reveal their true nature and turn into horrible monsters and demons that attack everyone around them. And those attacked by imposters become imposters themselves, like a virulent plague that spreads unseen. After their first appearance, chaos ensued in cities and nations. Many would suddenly find out that a close friend or even their lovers or families were imposters. This belief escalated uncontrollably as baseless accusations and false methods to find imposters circulated amongst people, often ending up prosecuting innocents. Yet hardly any real measure was taken against them, as their numbers were few, and so long as they didn't reveal their true nature, their actions remained unchanged and lives could go on as they were supposed to. Complacency and greed formed an unending cycle that eventually led to the tragedy where it all began. The city of Eladinon was the locus of greatest prosperity in the Palos Empire. A center of trade and wealth, it was said that half of the empire's gold was in this city. It was the pride of the empire, and many strived to live in this city amongst the rich and noble. Yet even in this city, imposters began taking root like vile pus gathering on their infected skin. When the people had realized how far the situation had come, it was indeed much too late. Most of the citizens were in fact imposters, and it only took a single day for the Golden City to fall to ruin and be lost forever. The land was darkened with ash and blood, and since then, what's left of the city has been called the Dark Side. This was Ozma's declaration of his revenge on the humans, 100 years after he was betrayed. The beacon that signaled the Black Crusade was lit, And for the next 100 years, Arad faced the darkest moment of its history. But not all hope was lost. One day, a young man wielding sacred powers appeared. He was Michael of the Holy Eye, the first saint. With his divinity, he could look through impostors and reveal them amongst the innocents. And after him, those who have received divinations began to appear all over Arad. They too had the power to unveil impostors, and Michael brought them together under the banner of the Order to halt the spread of chaos. The Palos Empire provided them unrestricted support, knowing that they were the only hope they had. And one fateful day, the forces of the Order and Chaos clashed on the dark side where it all began. As the demons and impostors marched, the priests and believers stood fast, light from their burning lives halting the spread of the darkness. And whilst they did so, the first saint faced the god of chaos himself. The war ended as abruptly as Elarinon was lost. The forces of chaos and Ozma's 3 dark knights felt a disturbance as they noticed that their master had disappeared. Ozma wasn't vanquished. He had simply vanished as if he was taken away to a different dimension. Michael had won and succeeded in sealing Ozma and the dark side away in between dimensions. Without their master, the minions lost their strength, and the Order quickly disposed of or sealed away those who remained. The Black Crusade was over, and Arad was finally at peace. But the victory wasn't as radiant as many had hoped. The Palos Empire had exhausted much of its resources and ended up collapsing, split into several smaller nations until it was conquered and annexed by the Delos Empire. Michael knew that chaos was not truly gone, and it still lingered in the world. There were also some minions of chaos that had managed to escape retribution, including Astaros, one of Ozma's dark knights. Under her lead in the shadows, they formed a black church that worshipped Ozma and sought to bring him back. With the priests, Michael reformed the Order as an organization that spread the faith of Lamedios and protected the people against evil. It was also then that Michael disappeared from the world. As new protectors of Order rose, he knew that the world was safe for now and moved on to fulfill his own task. Indeed, the priests of the Order could not believe that the first saint had disappeared so suddenly, but they knew what they had to do and carried on without him. They kept watch of the world, squandering any trace of chaos that would raise their heads and providing shelter to the weak. Just as Michael watched, the shackled Ozma between dimensions. Michael kept a watchful eye on Ozma for centuries, making sure that he would not be able to escape. But Ozma did not remain idle in his prison, as he was gathering strength and waiting for the opportune moment to break free. Indeed, the dark side was Ozma's realm, and there were many impostors sealed here with him. It was only a matter of time before Michael would exhaust himself and he would break free. But Ozma soon realized that it was not just the saint that was keeping him shackled. He could feel the chains of his friend Kazan rise from the netherworld and constrict him, keeping him in place. Kazan begged his friend to stop this meaningless slaughter, and Ozma answered that this meaningless slaughter would end once the humans were gone. Kazan pleaded that this was all her ploy, but Ozma did not care one bit. He was willing to be whatever he needed to be, even a puppet, if it meant that he would have his vengeance. There was no reconciliation for the two. Kazan swore that he would keep Ozma sealed for all eternity. Ozma swore that he would eventually break out, and it would be the humans who shall betray Kazan yet again and allow him to escape. The tension grew in silence. Meanwhile, the Grim Seekers had resurrected Sirocco, and she was slain by the adventurers. But it was not just Sirocco that the Grim Seekers had planned to bring back. They knew about Ozma's location between dimensions, and also that he was being held in place by Michael and Kazan. To give Ozma an opportunity, they performed a spiritual ceremony to call Kazan's soul from the nether and possess him in a vessel. The vessel was too weak and could only hold Kazan in the world of the living for but a moment, but it was enough to interrupt his seal and loosen the grip on Ozma. The Black Church did not miss this opportunity. Their operation was threefold: undo the seal on the two Dark Knights, Berias and Tiamat, find Kazan's body and resurrect him to fully release his chains on Ozma, and open a dimensional gate that led into the dark side. Despite the adventurers and the Order's counteroffensive, the Black Church and Astaroth were swift with their actions. The gate to the dark side opened. Chaos was free. The Order of the Priests knew that a second Black Crusade was at hand. They rallied all the priests that could come from all over Arad, and even new allies from the Knights of Usir joined them. Michael of the Holy Eye, who was nowhere to be seen, had also left his cross as a ward to protect them from Ozma's whispers and taints of chaos. While not all of the Order believed Michael to be good, his protection proved itself useful. With the adventurers on their side as well, they were ready to face Ozma once again. Meanwhile, Kazan was also fully resurrected by the Black Church, so that he would lose his grip on Ozma. Kazan begged him one last time to end his hatred, that there was no hope for the humans and their wrath would change nothing. But Ozma had come too far, and there was only one thing left he cared about. Kazan, despaired by his friend's answer, made a decision. He would destroy everything and carry the burden of his friend's sins, as the god of extinction rightfully should. The adventurers had proven their might against Sirocco, and indeed none of Ozma's minions and Dark Knights stood any chance against them. They crushed their way through the dark side to the throne of chaos where Ozma was waiting for them. Even Kazan, who the rest of the Order could not even lay a finger on, could not best them. He soon exhausted himself, and Charon, the gatekeeper of the Nether, carried him away back to the Nether where he would forever be sealed. And when he was gone, the last of the seals on Ozma disappeared. When the adventurers and the Order arrived before him, Ozma gathered every inch of his strength and revealed his most powerful form yet, one enough to make all except the adventurers unable to even stand before him. But even with all his power, it was not enough. The refined blade struck the god of chaos, and he fell. Kazan, my dear friend, you were always afraid that I would be used by the one watching from beyond the skies. But none of it ever mattered. If I could devour the world with chaos, and with my wrath crush the Empire, and end the humans, that was all I wished for. I had nothing left except vengeance. I may perish, but chaos will remain. Watch from the Nether, Kazan. As he faded away, he whispered to his friend one last time. He knew all along that all he was doing was pointless, that the puppeteer was using him. But he had lost so much, it didn't matter, and he only wished to fulfill the single desire left in his heart. After his death, a skirmish for Ozma's essence occurred. The Delos Empire attempted to capture his essence, as they have with the previous apostles. But this time, Midnight Darkness attempted to steal the essence from them, having been warned by Hilder. It was then that Michael intervened, tossing Midnight Darkness away into a dimensional rift and claiming the essence of chaos. The Black Crusade was over, and the era of chaos came to an end. But the victory was not a sweet one. Many fell from the battle, and even more had become impostors, even Van Franz, the crown prince of the empire. Discord bloomed within the order of the priests due to the remaining impostors and Michael's intervention during the Black Crusade. Was he a saint or an enemy? Ozma may be gone, but chaos remains.